All right, so we'll drink Dasha's tea. This is a traditional yellow tea, and I'll just lay it out, and then I'll tell kind of the story. This is her most like rustic.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Like I would say, not the highest grade that she makes, but still I think to an incredible standard. And I think a really great tea. But she makes traditional Huoshan Yellow, which is one of the like 3 or 4 traditional yellow teas of China. But this is like more leafier plucking grade, a little bit later in the year, past Guyu, past grain rain, you know, April 17th, higher up the mountain, small batch still, and she finished it with a charcoal roast. But anyway, so yeah, setting up this story. So we rolled up to Luan, which is in Anhui province, and this is kind of the furthest extremity, like north of our journey. Didn't know anybody. Anhui province, like completely new to me. It seemed like almost like a hostile environment. Like we stayed at a hotel near the wholesale market, like block or two, you know, like that district. And so we'd walk down the street. They were just like, "What are you doing here?" Yeah. Like just puzzled and confused, and had no idea how to interface with us, and would not assume that we were there for tea. So we did not get any invitations into any tea rooms off of the street, which was like a little like, oh man, what's my angle here? Like, how do I just get in? And I don't want to just like walk up and just impose myself and expect someone to just serve me and just tell me basically like secrets of this place and like get me really, really in. I want an invitation. I want to feel right about getting into a place. So we were hungry. We stopped at a place to eat. And so when the chef came out, he's like really tired. He like lights up a cigarette and he's like hanging out. And I was like, "Lao ban, xie xie," like, "辛苦啦," like good food, like, "好吃," you know. And so I was like telling him like, "Great work," you know, called him boss, all that stuff, you know. And so he gets a chuckle that like here's these Laowai that are like, you know, using broken Chinese essentially. And I thought we were amusing. So I eventually walk over to pay him, and I was like, you know, really looking for these traditional production methods here. I really want to, you know, bring this to the wider world and, you know, see what there is to celebrate about this region. And we're in the wholesale market district. Do you have a recommended place? And he was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess. And he was kind of like what? I eventually got him out on the street, and he was like pointing to a place, and he eventually was like, okay, come on, we'll walk over. So he like walks us over to a place and gives an introduction to his friend. He's like, hey, these like crazy Laowai are just here for like traditional production methods, and they seem cool. I don't know, like maybe you can help them out. And they're like, oh yeah, sit down, come on, yeah. And so got the introduction, you know, cool, we're in. He has a little bit of like a recommendation. It seems like a better shop than most. I probably wouldn't have walked into it. It's a little tucked away. And so this guy was, you know, pretty coy and cool, and I was asking questions, and you could tell he like knew a lot, but he's being vague. And you know, I was like, you know, I want to go to the Bat Cave, the core production area of Luang Guapian tomorrow, like blah blah, like, you know, who do you know? You know, I was asking him all these questions. And in Luan, you know, there's Luang Guapian, of course, and nearby there's Huoshan Mountain. There's where they make Huoshan Yellow, this traditional yellow tea. So we have this whole day, the next day with Luang Guapian, which is a whole other story. But what I'm here to tell is this Huoshan Yellow situation where I had asked this guy, you know, who's making this traditional yellow tea still? And he was like, it's all green tea. It's all green tea. No one's making yellow tea anymore. Huoshan Yellow is a green tea, essentially. You know, it has the name still, but people are making green tea because when, you know, production needed to scale up, yellow tea production methods are the hardest to scale up. It just takes one person really overseeing this process, using their senses. It's a very tactile situation. They can't scale it up, and so people start to cut corners. Yellow tea is one of the 6 major types of tea, and so it's still marketable. So you still want to have that like one foot in the ancient world sort of situation where you can offer a yellow tea to the market, but people aren't able to scale it up and produce a yellow tea that's affordable if they're sticking to the traditional method. So that's the inconvenient situation of yellow tea, unfortunately. And he was like, no one's doing that. Like 99.9% of it is like, and I was like, but there's a 0.1. Like, what do you, like, who is this? And he was like, most of the people are not doing it. And I was like, but you said most, but who is the, and he was like, well, there's, you know, there's a female tea boss, and her nickname I'll tell you. And I was like, you're gonna tell me a nickname, okay? And so he told me the nickname Dasha, and I was like, okay, cool, that's my lead. And
That's me and Dasha.
And so yeah, with that lead, we, the next day we had kind of an interesting day that I didn't think was that satisfactory with finding good luwang guapian. We found really good luwang guapian, but it was just super, super expensive, and we didn't necessarily connect with the people as much as we wanted to.
Yeah.
We got taken on a wild journey. It was great in some ways, and it was also like, but this doesn't necessarily feel right. And so this whole Luan situation was turning into a flop, in my mind. And so the next day, we actually had to switch hotels for this weird reason. We walk into this hotel, and long story short, I start talking to this guy who's in the lobby, and he's like, what the hell are you doing here? And I was just telling him my mission statement, as always, and he thought it was cute and funny and cool and whatever. And so he was like, I'd love to take you out for dinner tonight. Like, it's on me. So he's this guy, he's in the steel industry in Shanghai, and, is like ordering the servers around, and we eat at this crazy restaurant, and he pays for Jeff's haircut afterward. The Chinese hospitality thing is going a little bit. And so I was like, dude, we're going to Huoshan tomorrow. Like, you're from this area. If you want to go with us and you want to be on this crazy adventure with us, like, you want to go? And he was like, sure, I'll go. I was like, no, you pay for the DD, I'll go with you. And so we got into the taxi, and I was like, great, this guy who's, somewhat of like, he can at least quickly diffuse the confusion of any sort of future situation by saying, yeah, these crazy Laowai are here, and here's the reasons why, and so cool, awesome. So we're driving there, and he's calling all these tea people in Shanghai, and he calls this one apparently Buddhist-centered tea house, like boutique tea mindfulness center in Shanghai, who he's friends with the owner with. And she was like, I know Dasha. And he was like, what, really? And so he knew someone who knew her, and they got linked on a group chat. But apparently this like enigma, that is this growing enigma of Dasha, is a little put off by someone just trying to reach her who's an outsider. And she doesn't like a whole lot of government attention, apparently, and has turned down the requests of people before, specifically Western purveyors before, and wanted this person in Shanghai to interview me. And so on a video conference call before she would even consider it, right? And so I was like, God, who is this person? And so, I started talking to the individual on the conference call, and she was like, by the way, you're really lucky that you're even, on this conference call, and that you really need to be thankful to the gentleman that you're driving with and me, and it's like, okay. And she was like, Dasha makes like some of the best tea in the world, and is doing it in a very great way. And it's like, it's very, like, the values are there. She's very well trained, she's well studied, she's been to multiple universities, and she's deciding consciously to go back to her hometown and to make traditional yellow tea.
Wow.
Almost like in this heretical way, like deciding to do it as a lifestyle, and it's not just tea, it's like medicinals, like she's in the mountains harvesting other plants too. So I was just getting really interested in this lead, this like enigma, and I was asking her about her mindfulness center, and I was like, who are the people that you want to serve and help out? And I was like, I kind of think that we share a similar market, like people that want to appreciate a natural heritage like this, a product that, someone, a stalwart, is like stepping up and is like, I want to do this, I want to do yellow tea, and I want to do it the right way. And I was like, that's me, and that's the people that I want to connect with this tea and with this person, and I want to honor that. And so I think the interview went well, or at least it did, to the degree where she said, okay, I'll pass this on to Dasha. And then Dasha later that afternoon, after hours of waiting, she's like, holy shit. And by the way, this is a one-way trip, like with the taxi. It's like, we go to Huoshan, we don't have a ride secured back. We have no idea. And I'm just riding an hour out into the sticks on just a nickname. And so she says, yes, we can meet her. And so we were to go to her mother's house, hang out with her sweet mom, and have tea and whatever, while her mom cooks dinner. And Dasha's in the tea mountains, and she's still harvesting tea. She'll be there later that night. So we're waiting around for her. And
so mysterious.
Right, and so she finally gets there, and she's just like this sweet, like round, bubbly lady who's just been out in the tea mountains with like a group of like 4 of her workers. And after the whole day of tea harvesting, she basically lays out like 3 or 4 bamboo mats of tea buds, and that's all. That's all there is after a whole day of harvesting. It's just these meticulously harvested wild buds. And she's like showing me videos and of where tea gardens are, and she's like, oh yeah, you went up to Jinjishan, the Golden Rooster Mountain, which is the core production area for Huoshan green tea now. But she has her family gardens up at this other mountain, which is lesser known, that's higher up in elevation. And showing me the videos of that is just like pristine, beautiful, like Shanghai ecological, no spray, like old bushes. She don't even know the cultivar sort of thing. That sort of situation. And so we have dinner together. We drink all of her teas. It's amazing. We're hitting it off, like asking the right questions. She's got the right answers. I've drank a lot of the early spring bud tea that she has, but this tea is like 1 bud, 3 leaves. Still has the stem not separated out. Very rustic, like yellow tea style that she makes. That's very affordable. I'm not really quite sure if I'm gonna carry it yet, but yeah, this is the true Huoshan Yellow Tea that she makes.
From the great Dasha.
From the great enigma and the tea heretic Dasha, who I can attest is not really making a whole lot of money off of this. It's not a marketable substance because the price has to be high, and people can say that they have Huoshan Wangya as a green tea, and they can still say that it has that name. So she's really doing something special, and it takes someone who's that crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be, a passion project to maintain this dying style of tea,
Yeah.
Ooh, wow. The stems impart a really cool toasty aroma to it.
So what she's doing is, there's the manhuang, the covering yellow step, and she's doing it 3 times. So she's firing it in the wok and using the moisture and covering it, and so it's that humid heat and that anaerobic environment that is causing this oxidation, this fermentation. And she's doing that back and forth 3 times. And then she's finishing it with a charcoal roast step, which is dry heat. So that just dries it out. And so you have that oxidation that's setting in through the fermentation, through the yellowing, the manhuang. And then you have this charcoal roast, which she does 3 times.
The yellowing 3 times. And how long is the charcoal roasting?
That's a good question. I still need to discuss the finer, things.
It seems to be that charcoal roasting. I mean, it doesn't seem to be always have to be as long as you would find in roasted oolongs. It's just a kind of a more rustic way of finishing it. Just dry.
And I should probably say that as a distinguishing thing. It's like it's charcoal finish instead of
as a roasting process.
Totally. So this is a charcoal finish. So she's doing everything traditional. I feel like everything is so small batch.
Yeah.
She's doing it with like old semi-wild trees, and even a tea that's like you look at this and like we've studied tea for a long time, and you see these stems like this, you're like, what is this about to be? Yeah. But it just has so much soul. I really enjoy her teas, and by the way. To finish the story out, to round it out, she makes Luan Guapian.
Oh wow! Okay.
So she, the whole Luan, fiasco of like, oh, it's just a flop. At the 11th hour, just sums right up and it's like, yes. Wow. Because she makes better Luan Guapian than the other person that I'd found for a little bit of a better price. Yeah. And she's doing it in a much better way that I feel really good about. So, really floored and privileged to work with this Dasha, legend. There's a few interviews out there that are old school at this point out there where she's talking about what she's doing, and she's not getting the acclaim that she needs, but hopefully I can play just a little bit of a part in that.
I mean, that's a perfect example of this kind of gambling on a one-way ticket in tea adventures to find what you're looking for. You could play it safe and be like, oh man, what if we get stranded out there? We shouldn't go out there. Let's not do this. But you take that one-way ticket out there on a lead and just pray to the tea gods that something's gonna land.
I had no other choice because I felt like I was like, if I leave here and I don't find out about what's up with this Dasha person, then it's like I would.
Well, the story at that point was so built up of like you have to meet this person.
Totally.
Yeah.
I believe that there's something to that. I don't know. Like there's a struggle. There's like it's I don't know, thriving through adversity. I don't know. Like people will at least see what you're doing and feel like it's incumbent upon them to maybe try to help you.
Yeah.
And so if you just explain what you're doing to someone, if you get some sympathy and someone helps you, then you're with the right people. You found the right people, at least the sympathetic person to that cause. So so I'm really excited. This is of course the stimmiest, lower plucking grade grade of tea that she has. And actually the leaves that she brought back the day that I was there, they weren't like the tiny little buds, but they were like a bud 1 leaf, bud 2 leaves, and so it was in between. And I asked her, I was like, well, can you make a tea around this price range from that material? And she said yes. And so the Huoshan Yellow Tea traditional very, very buddy stuff. Very, very expensive, which I might end up financing and bringing over here. But I want to introduce people to her tea at a more cost-effective product, basically. And so
Terry Todd would love this tea.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, this is her. I mean, you're also going to get probably more of a mellow caffeine experience with this tea.
I think so.
But it's still very flavorful.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So we're still in discussion over which teas, but I know that we're gonna.
But so the connection's been made with Dasha, this can be made. This can be a thing.
I'm at the very least going to get Luan Guapian and the leaves that were brought up when I was there, which is an in-between grade that I think is going to be really phenomenal. So, traditional yellow tea by this really interesting person.
Yeah.